The Spin-off Podcast Network.
This is Kiwi is back for a brand new season with more inspiring kōrero from special guests including rugby player, father and role model TJ Perenara.
My family bring me joy. Rugby brings me joy too, but it's not the same joy as my family brings me.
And global dancer and choreographer Kirsten Dodgen.
For some reason, people think I'm very intimidating.
Listen to the new season of This is Kiwi, brought to you by the Spin-off Podcast Network in collaboration with KiwiBank. Available now wherever you get your podcasts. This is Kiwi is back for a brand new season with more inspiring kōrero from special guests including amputee, mum and wellbeing advocate Jess Quinn.
I'm most confident that I can get through almost anything. It doesn't mean that I nail it every time, but I am very confident I can overcome almost anything.
And musician, creative and content creator Taylor Roche.
I feel like big dreams always get challenged all the time, especially when you're doing something that's not traditional.
Listen to the new season of This is Kiwi, brought to you by the Spin-off Podcast Network in collaboration with KiwiBank. Available now wherever you get your podcasts.
Because I think we don't get to see these types of immigrants at the foreground of our stories. They're not centred, they're not the protagonists, but by bringing the beauty out of those everyday moments, they get to become the protagonists.
Talofa lava, I'm Madeleine Chapman, editor of The Spin-off. Welcome to Behind the Story, where I go behind the scenes of a big article on the spin-off from the week. If you want a weekly rundown of some of the best reads from the spin-off every Saturday, make sure you sign up to the weekend newsletter. Today I'm talking to documentary maker Julie Zhu. Julie is the director of Takeout Kids, an observational series following 5 children as they work and grow up in their parents' shops. The series is beautiful, both in the stories it tells but also literally, with a focus on scene setting and stunning cinematography. I wanted to speak to Julie about how she finds the short stories within hours and hours of footage and the special considerations required when filming with young people. Here's Julie Zhu on Behind the Story. Kia ora, Julie. Thank you for being on Behind the Story.
Thanks for having me.
So Takeout Kids, Season 2, new batch of children.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about the very it's a great idea of following essentially children who grow up within the businesses that their parents run and own, I presume. The first season was largely food-based, hence Takeout Kids. Second season, you've expanded a little. Can you talk a bit about the decision behind expanding beyond food and who you've got this year?
Yeah. I guess for me it was never really about the food. The food in the restaurants was a vehicle, a way of getting to explore the lives of these immigrant families and seeing what the different perspectives these kids had and their relationships with their parents and their friends and their wider communities. So expanding to beyond just restaurants and takeaway shops means we can still explore those relationships and they're just kind of in different forms. So in the second season, we've got a nail shop in Whakatane and we've got a dairy just on Sandringham Road. And we're also at the night markets, the Auckland night markets, with Tan's Kitchen. They do. They have a store out in Otara, but they are also at the Auckland night markets. So yeah, it was cool to be able to go to different places and have kind of different contexts and settings for exploring the lives of these young people.
Was there anything in particular that inspired the idea for the series? Was there a particular person that you knew that you thought, oh, that should be filmed and more people should know about this? Or did it just kind of come separately?
Kind of a mix. I didn't grow up. That wasn't my experience. I wasn't a takeout kid. And sometimes I think I shouldn't be making this because it's not my experience. I did grow up with parents that were always working. So I think having absent working parents is a very common experience for lots of immigrant kids. So taking that as a starting point and then I think also just going to, like, we all go to shops and I feel like it's a familiar image that we see young people or families working together in shops. And I think it just comes out of a curiosity of wanting to know more about the kid that's doing their homework behind the counter or that sort of thing. There was one kid, so a few years ago, Rosabelle did like this, Rosabelle Tan, and she did this giant claw machine thing in Northcote. I'm not sure if you remember that. It was for satellites, and basically took over this empty shop in the Northcote block of shops and turned it into, just a giant claw machine to grab toys. And I was there taking photos, and there was this one Korean kid that was just like there all the time. I think apparently he was always just trying to play the game and trying to win the prizes. And I just thought he was like real cheeky and cute, and his parents ran a restaurant just real close by. That's why he was always there. And that was one kid that I really remember wanting to know more about. And then the first season we did approach that family in that restaurant, but I think they weren't keen to be part of it.
Yeah, I mean, it is, the whole focus is the kids and they are the central subjects. There are people have lots of thoughts about sort of working with kids and how it's very different to working with adults, particularly on camera. Were there any things that you learned from the first season of filming kids? Because the subjects this season range from 5 to 16. Did you have to deploy any different techniques in trying to kind of get what you were after while also working with a 5-year-old?
Yeah, it was definitely different working with much younger kids this season, and even simple things like trying to get them not to look at the camera. Like younger kids they struggle with that a little bit more, or not looking at the boom. And similarly, when you're filming in their classrooms, like their classmates will all want to look at the boom. And even in the final episodes, there are some shots where you can tell, or I can tell, that the kids are just looking at the boom. But I think another thing is just attention span. I think the 5-year-old Prayan, you can kind of tell there's like a moment in the episode where he almost has a little tantrum because he's just sick of writing. He can't be bothered writing the letter F. It's too hard for him. And same with when we were filming. I think towards the end of the day, he would get a bit more tired and get a little bit more grumpy with his family, because he's just 5. He doesn't have that much energy. So just being patient with that and rolling with whatever the kids wanted to do. I think we ended up finishing early a couple days because of that. So just giving family space. And I think a learning from the first season is we filmed so much in the first season, like just continuously. And even though we almost did that again this time, we definitely filmed a little bit less. I think just knowing that we don't need 50 hours of footage to make a 10-minute episode, but in my head, I'm always like, let's get everything. So I think letting things go a little bit more in the second season. But I think at the same time, to make observational documentary, you kind of do want to you want the camera to be rolling the whole time, because that's when you just get an unexpected moment that you couldn't have predicted.
It is an observational documentary series, which is relatively rare as far as a documentary form in New Zealand, largely because it means you did not sit the kids down and ask them questions and have them answer exactly the types of things that you wanted to talk about. How do you work with observation in terms of making it so that we're not just watching a kid wander around and we're still getting that story that you want to tell without just asking them to say it, essentially?
Yeah, I think it can be hard. I think we go in and we try to be really prepared, and we try to get to know the families really well and what the kids might be dealing with or struggling with, so that we can go in with a sense of what a potential narrative might be without obviously trying to enforce that if it doesn't naturally happen. I think so much of the time we just get lucky. Like the first time that we filmed with Dom, our second episode in Taupo, we drove from Tamaki to Taupo and arrived after school. So the first thing we filmed was him getting picked up from school and being driven to his next thing, which was golf. And in that moment was when his mum asked, "Oh, Dom, by the way, I have to let you know that your dad wanted to see you." And then Dom is just right away like, "Absolutely not." And later on we find out that he's going through this name change thing, and all of that was happening just in that week. So I think going in with certain themes that you know you want to cover, like for Kyla's episode, because they're in a nail shop, we kind of, and from me meeting the kids before we were filming, I could tell that like beauty was like important to them, and fashion, and I was interested in how the influence of the nail shop was on their interest in those kind of feminization. I don't know what I'm trying to say. I was interested in what impact the nail shop had on how they viewed themselves and their bodies, and how they wanted to present themselves. So having that as a theme to explore, then we kind of just tried to gather all the moments that were relevant to that in the edit.
So you shot close to 50 hours for a 10-minute documentary. Obviously, which maybe not a lot of people fully understand, is that even when it is narrative or when you've got interviews, you film a lot and most of it is not in the show.
Yeah.
Were there whole threads that you sort of thought might be something and you filmed a whole bunch and then it didn't pay off and then that's just all goes?
Yeah, there's lots. Like there's so many good moments that don't make the cut because they don't fit into this neat-ish 12-minute, 10-minute episode. For Dom's episode, like even though he's raised by a single mum, he actually has a huge community that his mum has created for him in Taupo. Like she has all these friends who are all from different kind of immigrant backgrounds, immigrant women, and she's real tight with them, and they become like Dom's extended family, and we filmed with that, and we really wanted to try show that. But in the final episode, it just kind of didn't fit in, so that feels like it's missing a part of his story. But this episode, the story is more focused on his relationship with his mum, so we didn't want to muddy it up too much. I think in terms of observational, I think it's also just, I really love the everyday moments and trying to find the beauty in everyday moments. So when we're filming, I'll just be like watching my monitor and like nothing is happening for hours, but I think it's so interesting just watching them, how they actually are. And then I guess you just occasionally like note down an interesting thing that was said that might relate to something else that was said, and through the edit try and construct something. But I really love that these are just everyday immigrant families, and they're not extraordinary. They aren't, they haven't become the most successful immigrants. They're just everyday people, but they do have amazing things, complex things happening in their lives. And I think that's what the series is trying to delve into.
I mean, it's shot beautifully, and I think everything you make is always shot very beautifully, and it's always a quite funny reminder, at least for me, when I see it and I go, maybe my life is actually also really beautiful when I'm just wandering around and, you know, picking things up off the shelf and putting them back on the shelf.
So. I feel like it's us just reading beauty into those everyday moments. Yeah. I think it's highlighting the everydayness, because I think we don't get to see these types of immigrants at the foreground of our stories. They're not centered, they're not the protagonists, but by bringing the beauty out of those everyday moments, they get to become the protagonists. I was going to say something else about the how do you do it with no interviews. We kind of struggled a little bit with Lauren's episode, and that through our conversations with her, and I guess because she is older and she can articulate her feelings a bit more, she was one where I was like, oh, if this was an interview-based documentary, like we could get so much out of her because she's so articulate, and she thinks so deeply about all of the kind of factors of her family running that shop. And she had told us about like her dreams of traveling and things like that, so we knew that, but while we were filming, like none of that came across. She didn't really talk about it with her friends. There was nothing in her room that really showed that that's something she was interested in, and I was like, how do we like show that? And it got to the last day and I was still like, oh, I just feel like there's something like missing, like we're not portraying her fully enough with how complex she is. And then I just suggested like a last-ditch effort. I was like, would you want to like write a letter to your grandparents? Because she really likes writing. Would you want to write a letter to your grandparents about how you feel about the shop and your relationship with them and things like that? And then she was like, okay. And then, she started writing like it was like a diary entry. It was like all her emotions, how she felt about everything. And it was so beautiful. It like made me cry. And I'm not sure if we include everything in the final edit because there was some there was lots of stuff said. And I think in the final edit, we try and make it more like she's just doing a piece of homework. But that was one way of trying to get around the fact that we knew there was so much depth to her, but we couldn't go to an interview to articulate that.
This is a short documentary in terms of each episode being about, you said 10 to 12 minutes, and it's observational, which is very beautiful to watch. For people who get quite into it and are wanting something longer or to watch maybe a feature-length observational documentary feature, do you have any recommendations of people that you particularly admire or styles that you like to emulate in your own work?
Yeah. Well, some mentors that we had on this season was Chris Pryor and Marianne Smith. And when I was at uni, I watched their film, How Far Is Heaven? And that was like my first experience of observational documentary. And yeah, I think I was like, whoa, I didn't know you can make a documentary like this. So their work is really cool. They have another feature called The Ground We Won. But yeah.
Thank you, Julie, for being on Behind the Story.
Thanks for having me.
That was Julie Zhu on Behind the Story. The second season of Takeout Kids premiered this week, and episodes will be released every Tuesday on thespinoff.co.nz. I'll be back next week with another spin-off writer and another spin-off yarn. Thanks for listening.
We started doing a pipeha.
I don't know where I'm from. Yeah, I'm gonna go check with the chef.
Takeout Kids, a coming-of-age documentary series, returns for Season 2. From a Thai restaurant to a dairy to a nail salon, 5 young people balance school and relationships while growing up in their families' shops.
Are you working tomorrow?
I go to school.
Watch Takeout Kids on The Spin-Off today, made with the support of New Zealand On Air.
Kia ora, I'm Alex Casey, Senior Writer at The Spin-Off. We wouldn't exist without the ongoing support of our generous members. If you're able to, you can make a donation at thespinoff.co.nz/donate.
The Spin-Off Podcast Network.